Hello, everyone. Welcome to another show of the Balance and Empathy Show. I'm here today with Ashok from Canada and Miss Rena from Perth, Australia. Welcome, everyone. Today, we are talking about a very interesting topic that is, I think, relatable for everyone in every sense. Today's topic is being in the moment and really living in the present moment because especially during the age of social media, we can get quite disconnected from each other, even though you're living in the same house, so to speak. So that's our topic for today. If you're watching, please put in the comments where are you watching from, because we want to know where you are based throughout the world, and we are so curious in finding out who we reach. And now I want to pass the word on to Rena. Rena, living in the moment and being in the moment, what does that mean for you?
What it means for me, Tisha, it's a wonderful question. It means how does my body, how does my mind, and how does my heart integrate with that particular situation? And how do I feel? And how do I articulate that to people? So, as an example, this week was my niece's 16th birthday. And I remember the day she was born. It was a most beautiful morning, a tangerine sky. I saw a flock of birds, and it was a really memorable experience. And it made me feel so happy and so proud that I was going to have my first little niece. And then this week, we celebrated her 16th birthday. And we
Wow.
had a limousine pick us up for dinner, drive us around our beautiful city of Perth. And then we went out for dinner and we sat down in the restaurant and we all engaged about the moment when she was born. And I said, I'd never seen a baby scream so much, coming out of her mother's womb. She screamed so much. The beautiful midwife showed us what to do. So she crossed her hands across her belly and put her in warm water. And so, going back to your question, it's all about how you feel in that integration of mind, body, and the heart.
That's beautiful, Rena. And that story really reminds me of the birth of my own children. I gave birth to 5 children, and those were like the happiest moments in my life because you have no choice but being in the moment at that time, obviously. And to hold your child for the first time, especially after feeling it move like for 9 months, right? It's watching it grow. That's super amazing, super amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. Ashok, being in the moment, what does that mean for you?
Well, I'll stay on the birthing theme then. I did not give birth to anybody, but I was there. I was there the second my children came out of my beautiful wife, and I held them the first. And those experiences are so powerful. There's all these hormones our bodies make, like oxytocin, and our brain is on fire and our heart is on fire at the same time. And because of that, we have no trouble focusing on that particular moment. I can see those moments, all three of them, as these little tiny bundles of love, as if they happened just a moment ago. And my task is to make the moments that matter momentous
Mm-hmm.
by trying to conjure that sensation of my mind and my heart and my soul and my spirit engage in that moment, whether I'm trying to soak it in for myself, but more importantly, if I'm trying to project that for somebody else, to make them feel like I'm completely there with them in that moment.
That's really powerful. That's really powerful. And I think, especially as a parent, but also like as a role model, as a caregiver, as an auntie, Rena, it is so important that, especially for the children around us, we show them that by really giving them that focused attention, and it doesn't have to be all day long, obviously, but having moments on during the day where you give your focused attention once a one, it really makes a world of a difference because
Mm.
those children, they feel you have attention, especially for them. It makes them feel important. It makes them feel noticed. It makes them feel heard. It makes them feel loved if it's positive attention, obviously. And I think that is key. And that makes me think about the social media thing that we started to show off with. Um, so, for instance, if I may give an example of my own children being in the moment, many children now have a social media device. It can be a tablet, it can be a phone, and it can be quite easy, right? When you're busy as a parent and they do a little game on their tablet or watch something on Disney Channel or whatever they watch, a little cartoon, gives you some time. But I remember when we are having dinner at the family table at my house, my children really want to bring their tablet or their phone to the table. And I never
Mm.
allow that because what happened one time when I was cooking something else and they were already sitting at the table, I saw them sitting there watching their own screen, right? Both of them, the two youngest ones. And they were not having a conversation. They were not having contact. They were not really connecting with each other. And so I said, guys, put away your phones. Let's talk about your day. How was your day? What was it at school? What did you do with your friends? What did you do at your lunch break? Let's have a conversation. And when you do that and you take away those devices and you really create that moment of connecting with each other, I think there's so much value in that, because when they grow up, they will remember those family moments. And that's important for them growing up, to know that there was really family connecting time. And for me as a parent, that's something I really want to give to my children, those memories for later. Because when they grow up, I'm sure they will not remember what game they were playing sitting at the dinner table. They will remember stories being told, jokes being made, and that family feeling at the family dinner table. And that's what I want to give them, to really being in the moment. And I'm sure both of you have examples like that as well. And also, Ashok, you in your practice, you must be helping people who lost connection with each other. Maybe you can share something about that. And Rena, you might have examples as well.
Well, I'll go into that actually, because I have been doing virtual care now for quite a while, and virtual care has a lot of advantages. But I think what we're talking about today, from my perspective at least, is the difference between 2 dimensions and 3 dimensions. So Rena was telling us a couple of times back about her beautiful horses. I mean, it'd be the difference between watching someone ride a horse on a television show and actually riding a horse in 3
Right.
dimensions, being on the horse, being there with the horse. I rode an elephant in India back in 1983 and up in Jaipur. And I can still remember feeling the heartbeat of the elephant and how
Wow.
tall they are. They have massive lungs. I can still remember feeling like I'm swaying. There's no way I could get that on a virtual or 2-dimensional experience. So it's a lot easier to be in a moment when you have 3 dimensions to it. I'll just leave it there. Rena?
Yeah, you make a really good point there. Today I spent time out in the garden and I was putting solar lights up on my beautiful trees, solar lights for Christmas. And I just felt so engaged with nature because I walked away from my technology. I thought I'd just give myself a break, So that feeling was just so great. It was like a feeling of such a relief, that I had the opportunity to engage with the beauty of nature, and think about, the upcoming event of Christmas, which is important to me. So those type of things that really stimulated my mind, my heart, my soul, and my spirit that you talked about, Ashok. And
I can
just
really
about that
go ahead.
experience. It's an interesting experience about being on an elephant. You go from side to side in comparison to a horse, where you sort of going forward.
Really? I have to try. I've never tried it before, but I have to try it. It sounds amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, do have experience horseback riding as a child, mostly, so not as an adult, and my children do too. And yeah, it's really different, the 2G and the 3G experience, obviously. And I think experiencing real connection, that's really important. And I can really relate, Rena, being in nature. And it's so interesting. Whenever I am, we have this little family house on the Dutch islands, and whenever I am there with my children, I do completely different activities than when I'm in my own house, like right now, right? So
Mhm.
when I'm there, I'm in nature, and then immediately I have this different energy, and I go out with the children, and we do not have internet in the house, by the way, in that vacation house. I think that makes a difference too. And the kids often complain, oh, there's no Wi-Fi here, you know. But I actually love it because it makes you disconnect from technology and connect to each other. We always
Mhm.
do much more family activities when we are at that little vacation house. And I often
Mhm.
think, well, what's the difference? When I go to my own house, you have your work, the kids go to school, and everything, and your weekly routine that you go through. And then you do different things. And obviously, when I'm there in the vacation house, I have this feeling I connect much more there, you know. So I really love being there, for the connection part and also for the nature part. So I can really relate. So let's ask our audience, do you have any questions or comments that we may share, or ask questions that we may answer for being in the moment? If so, please put them in the comments and we will do our best to answer your questions. Um, Ashok, you also talked about helping a lot of couples who got disconnected. What's your advice about people who really lost that connection? How can they connect again? What can we do to help? How can we help each other?
Well, I think let's talk about connection first of all. And for me, what defines a moment? How do you know that the moment you're in is the moment? If you think of a couple and they haven't even really started dating, and they're waiting in the bus on a rainy day to go downtown so they can just walk about with each other. That if they're deeply in love with each other, that's a fantastic moment, just waiting in the bus shelter in the rain. But if they get married and 20 years later, they might be absolutely irritated with each other because they're standing out in the rain waiting for the bus. And so, what defines a moment? And I think what defines a moment is the power of the connection. And as Rena said, the heart and the mind and the soul and the spirit, connecting with somebody in that moment. And so, when couples often get estranged from each other emotionally, there's something about that connection that's weakened, and something about that connection that they need to rediscover to have that momentous moment with each other. And in fact, sometimes I explicitly advise people to have a grand gesture, and that is to do something that deliberately makes a moment. It could be a small thing, it doesn't have to be a big thing, but it's a way of beginning to celebrate that relationship again. Did you catch that, Rena?
Yeah, that's beautiful. That grand gesture, absolutely incredible. It's such a beautiful way, I think, to reignite, because people do have a lot of beautiful memories about being together.
But it's about
Um,
making new memories as well, right?
yeah, yeah.
And so if
Very
a
much.
couple if a couple have drifted apart again,
Yeah,
it's incumbent on both of them to make new memories. If the old relationship didn't work, it didn't work for a reason.
yeah,
And sometimes instead of going back and fixing the old relationship,
yeah,
I would really encourage them to deliberately build a new relationship.
yeah, yeah.
Focus on the growth that they've made. Focus on the new person that they are. Find new hobbies to do together. You know,
Mm,
maybe you want to go hiking. Maybe you want to do something you never did before. Read a book together. And that means that you'll actually read to each other a page, hand it back and forth and read the page. That way you can actually connect with each other. Everyone loves to be read to, or
mm,
just read poetry. And so there's things, the more you do with someone, the more you have in common with them.
mhm,
And building up that friendship of commonness sometimes is a powerful way to begin to help a couple who have maybe slipped apart a bit to
mhm,
come back together and text each other but try not to be texting other people when you should be texting each other. That's an interesting thing that's happened in relationships now about texting each other. But I'll just leave it for there. Are you back with us, Tisha?
Yes, I'm back. I missed the part, a little connection problems. No worries, technical resistance. So I missed the part about a grand gesture, but I got the part about making new memories together. And for me, that so resonates because I always make a point, even to my children and also to like my partner, to making memories together, making beautiful memories together is so important, right? And then making little photo book of them where you can go through, you can sit on the couch and you can go through a photo book together and you can revisit those beautiful memories that you made. And something that you said when we had a conversation before the show, Ashok, I really like that as well, is that it's so important to have that one-on-one focused attention for each other. You gave an example. Say you are in a conversation with someone and you see that person looking, who's coming, you're at a meeting somewhere, who else is coming into the room. You feel that person is not really connecting to you. He is maybe he or she may be spending some time with you until someone else interesting might come into the room, right? And that can set, if you do that, that can set, you can give the other person the feeling that you don't appreciate them, that they are maybe not worthy of your time. And that's not a message that I want to give to people when I have a conversation with them. So I think for your partner, but also for your colleagues, right? And especially for your children, that's the most important. Make sure when you have a conversation with someone that you are truly connecting with them, that you have that one-to-one attention with them instead of like going like this, seeing if someone else comes into the room. You don't want that, and you don't want to give another person that feeling. And so for me, that also really resonated. And I think when you do that in a relationship, working relationship, personal relationship, that's always very valuable to do because then you are living in that moment.
Yeah, Tish, and I just wanted to elaborate on that because Ashok did talk about reciprocal empathy. So I think it'd be great for the audience if you could just elaborate on that, Ashok.
Oh, absolutely. So empathy is the capacity to experience and imagine what somebody else is thinking and feeling from their perspective, not your own. So if somebody is empathizing with somebody else, that means this person is empathizing with this person. Well, wouldn't it be cool if this person was empathizing with this person so that you're actually reciprocating your empathy? And when I work with couples, I teach them, I spend a lot of time teaching them about empathy, but I spend more time teaching them about reciprocal empathy. Because if they're now wondering and experiencing each other's emotion and each other's wishes and fantasies about what they would like to happen in their relationship, that relationship is going to have a much more powerful, it's like turning on the lights in a huge room that's completely dark. You illuminate the relationship and you might see all these things in that room. Another thing I do with couples, I get them to take inventory of what they like. And I'll never forget, I had a couple who had been married for 50 years. And I did that with them. And they said, and so we come up with a few things that each of them like. And one of them said, but I thought you liked that. And the other one said, well, I did 50 years ago. I don't like that anymore. But I keep doing it. And so we were able to retake some inventory, change some of the things that they like because they changed, they'd evolved as people. So it's always a good idea to get current with what your partner likes in the present. And if both people are doing that, they're actually reciprocally empathizing with their needs. The closer you match somebody's needs in a relationship, the better they feel understood, the safer they feel. And guess what? The better the relationship works.
That's fantastic advice, Ashok. Thank you so much. We have a question from the audience, Ashok Kokhar, saying, Ashok, can you please explain three-dimensional idea again?
Well, actually, it's very easy. If you hold something in front of your nose, uh, like this, and you put your one finger on your nose and you try to touch the book with both eyes open, it's very, very easy. But if you close one eye and you try to do that, it completely changes because you only have 2 dimensions instead of three. And 3 dimensions gives you depth, it gives you a sense of space, how near and how far things away. And if you think about that in a relationship, that if you're in a relationship and you only have 2 dimensions with them, you're going to miss all kinds of pieces of information on how to relate to that person as well, and they're going to notice that too. So the third dimension is that sense of depth. And another way of looking at it is looking at a square as opposed to a box or a cube. That third dimension will tell you more information about that. So I'm always looking for depth when I'm trying to be in a moment with somebody. What will be the deeper moment here? And I can tell you one thing: if you go for that, especially in that conversation in the room, they stop looking around and they start looking at you because they don't want to miss anything.
Absolutely, well explained. We have another comment from Esha coming in saying, Ashfaq, sorry. Most important is to create memories with your family that may play important role in the future. And I think that's a really interesting comment, and I can agree with it. Although I also think, because sometimes I remember things from my past as a child, from my childhood, which at the time was just this basic moments, not much of importance. Now looking back, memorizing that, it was just one happy, fun moment of my childhood, which creates a little feeling of happiness for me memorizing it, right? So I think also those little playing, maybe family moments, where you don't think much of growing up, but then when you grow up, looking back, they actually were created such a solid foundation for you as a person. So I think
Mm,
those, they may seem insignificant at that time, and then later on they start being really significant and you realize how important it was shaping
mhm.
you.
Yeah, you make
And
a
we,
wonderful point there, Tisha, because I remember myself as a child. My father was in the tourism industry, and from a very early age, I used to have people, little kids around me all the time. I was like the Pied Piper. But then by night, you'd have to engage with the adults. So I had to very quickly pivot um, and change, exactly my behaviour. I was a child by day, but in the evening, I had to. There was a protocol and there was etiquette. So that really has shaped me, my childhood, my beautiful childhood. Thank you to my beautiful parents. So it's enabled me to be able to engage with people at all different levels, whether it be a cleaner or a CEO, someone at a task level or at a strategic level. It doesn't matter to me. Um, they are all important to me, and I'm able to adapt. And that comes back to
yeah,
my child.
I think that's fantastic, Rina, and I can really relate, and I think it's besides the topic, it's important anyway when you connect to people, whether it's the cleaner or the concierge or the director, they're all people and they are all worthy of your positive energy. I believe. At least that's my motto. So, Ashok, you were gonna respond. I saw. Go ahead.
Thank you. Jonas has got a great comment there as well. So we need to get back to that when I finish. But children don't measure time. So kids don't know when a long car trip is over, when you've just about left the driveway and you've still got 4 or 5 hours in the car, and the question is, are we there yet?
Oh
I'm
yeah.
I'm old, and so I'm measuring time very differently at my age and stage in life than when I was a child. And one of the reasons I want to talk today about the moment is time gets more and more precious the less we have of it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes even the most simple little thing can be so powerful and so important. like the last conversation that you have with someone that you'll never see again.
Mm.
Yes.
And you don't know that that was the last conversation, but that was it. And it might have been the most inane conversation about the color of the sky that day and how beautiful everything is, or even something more mundane. But because to me, all moments are precious. And one of my mottos is to be very mindful of how precious time is, so
Mhm.
that the moments that we have, we can get the most out of them for ourselves, but also for those people around us, so we make them memorable. Not every moment is memorable, we know that. But I think
Mhm.
it's very important, especially if you're trying to make an impression, or you're trying to impress, to teach a child, for example, that if you make that moment precious, it makes that moment more momentous.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I think that's a very important point that you touched there, like the last conversation, because you never know when it's going to be the last conversation, maybe to a
Mm.
friend or maybe to your parents. You just never know. And that really reminds me, I thank God both of my parents are still alive and healthy. Um, but a dear friend of mine recently lost his father. He actually made a post about it here on LinkedIn,
Mhm.
Dave Crane. And
Oh.
yes, and I'm so very sorry for his loss. And he said in that post that having that real conversation with your parents before it's too late is so important. And he
Mm.
actually gave an example that he interviewed his father and he asked him all these important questions. Not an interview like for business, but just like a conversation interview. Um, where he asked him all of his questions, like, what's the highlight for you as a father? What
Mm,
was your best memory in life? Those sort of questions. And I think those questions are so fantastic to ask because, like, later on, when that person is not there anymore and you revisit that interview or wherever you put it, right? Maybe you did it with your phone on a video. And I think that's so fantastic to do. And I still remember my partner doing that
Mhm.
with my grandmother years ago. She was visiting our little vacation house on the Dutch islands for my birthday because my birthday is in the summer. And she was sitting there on the terrace having their coffee and her cake. And then my husband was asking her all of these questions about her life, and she lived through World War II, right?
Wow.
And he asked her all of these questions about that period, but also about her life, her marriage, and her children. And he videotaped it, right? And so I think that's now she's not here, she's not with us anymore because she passed away a couple of years ago. But that's so fantastic to have. And we never ask those kinds of questions if you just go through the motion. But being in the moment really makes you create that beautiful conversation that you can revisit then later. I think now is a good time to go to Jonas's question. He's asking actually all of us. I want to know, what is your biggest success and the biggest, I don't know what that word is, that you are facing. I think your most beautiful success and maybe some bad period in your life that you are facing and you would never forget. Yeah, so for me, the biggest success, for me, the birth of my children. It's just nothing yet has topped that memory and that feeling. Nothing else in my life. The birth of them is just the most beautiful thing I have ever experienced. And like the baddest thing, I think I haven't had that yet. Looking back, maybe that will come. I don't know, but I haven't really had that yet. So maybe Ashok or Rena, you would like to answer this question of Jonas.
Yes, certainly. Jonas, so from my perspective, one of our biggest successes was to take a herd of horses that were rounded up on various stations in Western Australia. And if we hadn't taken them, they wouldn't be here today. But to give them a beautiful life, one without expectation of the horse, where they have a wonderful life and the freedom. So that was very beautiful. And then we celebrated on Australia Day, then coming on to this wonderful land and experiencing freedom. So that was very beautiful, Jonas. And then a challenge, one of the biggest challenges that I faced was seeing my father go through dementia. I found that really, really difficult, very challenging, very sad, and I just hate other people to experience what I go through, and so I'm doing constructive things for that. So I hope that answers your question.
That's a
Over to
fabulous
you.
answer, Rena. Thank you so much. I'm not going to answer the question in the way that will be satisfying, I'm sure. But I always think this, and this is me. This is a little light on who I am as a person. I always think my biggest success is yet to happen. And if I don't think that, then I think I'm going to still be just kind of looking for. I want to always be climbing mountains, and I think I even commented on one of Rena's posts recently about that reach for the sky. We had a little chat about that in the comments, and I'm old, but I still think that my biggest successes are ahead of me. And meeting you two, it was such an amazing experience that I'm working with two brilliant and very gifted people who are just trying to do
Thank you
some
so
good in the
much.
world. No, but it's absolutely true. I mean, I'd never imagined that I'd be having a successful show with two brilliant people. So to me, that my biggest success is always going to happen in the future. And the other
Good
story
point.
about a stress, a difficult moment, was when I was snorkeling off the coast in the water in Mexico. And I was off one of these little boat trips, and so it's about 20 of us. And my wife wisely chose not to go into the water. So I said, yeah, I love the water. I'm going to go in the water. So I went away from the group a bit. Now I'm underwater with the goggles, and I see this little black thing shooting towards me. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And within seconds, I'm surrounded by a 6-foot barracuda that has teeth this big.
Oh, my
And
goodness.
so there's this thing just kind of circling me like this, right? And its eye is huge and rolling around and just checking me out. And I pulled Arena. I completely relaxed. I just relaxed my body, my mind. I kept my eyes on this. Its mouth is moving, of course. And then once it realized I was too big to eat, and I realized it probably was going to hurt me, we had a moment together. We had a moment I will never forget for the rest of my life, as if we had a conversation. And then it darted off and became a little black speck and then just disappeared. And I'll never forget that. But I always think, you never know when you're going to have a moment that you'll never forget. And it might start off just as a little spot, and suddenly it's something very momentous. So that's the kind of things I think about.
Wow, Ashok, that's so, I can
Brilliant.
imagine that must be so intense at that moment.
That's what
Facing your,
moments are.
yeah,
Moments are
yes,
intense, and
yes,
if we try to make a moment momentous, we're actually trying to make it intense in a safe way. And if you think about it,
yeah,
what people remember,
that's what you
and I
did.
work with a lot of people with trauma. People have no trouble remembering a trauma. In fact, post-traumatic stress disorder is not being able to forget a trauma. That's why it's post-traumatic stress. The incapacity to have it fade into your past instead of being in the front of you. But I think we should all be working on being successful in our future. I think that's a great
Absolutely.
way to fend off brain disease, and that's one of the reasons why I eat healthily, and I always get my omega-3s in, and because I think the healthier your mind is,
Yeah.
the healthier your body's going to be, and you just grab those moments in front of you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And obviously we do the same. We take our omegas every day with balance oil, and it's just so fantastic for your health. Absolutely. Even like my father, who is in his 80s, he was a bit skeptic, right? And he told me lately, I was in the car with him driving to my oldest daughter's birthday, and I took my parents with me. And he said, there's something about that oil you talk about. I said, okay, well, what is it? yeah, like my memory has improved. I remember more from the past, and
Fantastic.
sometimes when yeah, that's fantastic, right? When sometimes I can't think of someone's name, but now it comes to me quicker. I said, wow, that's fantastic. That's so fantastic, and that's just wonderful in seeing what healthy life can do to you, even when you're in your 80s. It still makes a difference. So I think that's a fantastic point you made there, Ashok. And wow, now I'm thinking about your moment with the fish. That must be
Yeah.
so intense. Just one last question before we close off the show. It's Fariona asking, what can we do to forget the bad memories? I'm not even sure we need to forget them, but I think it's important to give them a place and also make room for new, beautiful, positive memories. But I'm sure, Ashok, you have advice that you can give in this situation.
No, I think you nailed it, Tisha, and that is exactly what I say. I say instead of focusing on the past to deliberately forget something, focus on the future. The balance in your brain happens when you have positive experiences to balance out negative ones. And so, what a lot
Right.
of people do if they have a bad experience, is that they keep going back to it in their mind instead of going forward into their future. And like I was saying earlier, my biggest success is in front of me. Even if you've had a bad past, you can still do incredible, amazing things with your future, and having good things that become new memories are a much better solution to old bad memories.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Tisha, I'd just like to acknowledge Ambreen. She's with us here today. Ambreen, thank you so much for being here. And she had a great poll that she put out. And what is the true superpower of humans? Kindness, empathy, humility, and any other. Ambreen, great post today, my dear.
Oh, I haven't seen it yet, Ambreen. I will definitely check it out. And thank you so much, for making that positive contribution to this beautiful community. I think lots of positive people here. Absolutely fantastic. I want to thank everyone for watching and for putting in their comments. I think it was a great discussion today. And to elaborate a little bit more on what you said, Ashok, I am super grateful to be doing this show with the both of you. You are such amazing people. And I'm just very happy to be here every 2 weeks with you, talking about these topics, trying to make the world a better place. And in next month edition of the GGA magazine, The Ambassador, there will be an article featured about our show and what we do. And I'm very much looking forward to that. For now, let's go to the closing comments. What's your number one tip for being in the moment, Rena?
Well, Tisha, if I could just refer to a quote by Buddha, and it's all about the secret of health for both mind and body is not to mourn for the past, worry about the future, or anticipate troubles, but to live in the present moment wisely and earnestly.
Beautiful, Rena. Thank you so much. Ashok.
Oh, for me, it's going to be pretty simple. I think every moment is a moment. And to make that moment momentous, put your heart, your mind, your soul, and your spirit into that moment for yourself, but also for the people around you. And that moment will mean more. And you will reflect on that moment for the rest of your life.
Beautifully said, Ashok. And if I may add to that, please make beautiful memories together with your loved ones. So you have these beautiful moments that you can later on reflect on. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you, Ashok. Thank you, Rena. We will see you all again in 2 weeks. See you then. Bye bye.
Bye.